Okay, ladies, welcome. And today we are having our goddess connection circle. We are honoring Hathor. Hathor is an Egyptian goddess of love, and so her nickname is the Venus of the Egyptians. So she is the Venus and the Aphrodite of the Egyptian pantheon, goddess of love and beauty, and really amazing goddess, said to be the counterpart of Sekhmet. So I believe tonight we are having our new moon circle, and you're going to learn all about Sekhmet, among other beautiful Egyptian goddesses. So today for the connection circle, we're going to focus on Hathor. So, and give us 1 minute. Let me adjust my phone. Okay. So, picture of Hathor. Can go to the next slide. All right, so our outline. We're going to talk about the origins of Hathor. We're going to talk about the sycamore tree, which is very significant to Hathor. Cults to Hathor, goddess of the sky, goddess of women, goddess of beauty, goddess of fertility, love, sacred symbols of Hathor, and then there is a ritual to the goddess Hathor. Go to the next slide for me. So who is Hathor? Hathor is an Egyptian goddess of the sky, of women, of beauty, of fertility, and love. Hathor was a major goddess in ancient Egyptian religion, who played a wide variety of roles. Her veneration began early in Egypt's history, possibly in the pre-dynastic era or the 3rd millennium BCE. Hathor was loosely connected with the sun god Ra of Heliopolis, whose eye or daughter she was said to be. One of the 42 state gods and goddesses of Egypt, and one of the most popular and powerful of the Egyptian goddesses. So she was often personified as a cow. Early depictions of the goddess show a queenly woman with the sun disk and horns on her head. Later, she came to be seen as a woman with the head of a cow, or simply as a cow symbol. Her life-giving energy and bounty toward humanity. Her association to Ra, the sun god. She was the daughter of Ra and was sometimes called the Eye of Ra. She shared this title with Bast and Sekhmet, among others, in her role as the sun god's defender. So here's her association to Horus, the sky god. Her principal consort was Horus. The name Hathor means a state of Horus and may not be her original name. She was associated with the mother of the pharaoh in her role as Horus's nurse, and also with the wife of the pharaoh in her role as Horus's consort. So interesting goddess here. She is seen as mother of the pharaoh, wife of the pharaoh, and it is believed that Hathor's legends, stories, and mythology is even older than the goddess Isis. So this is a very, very ancient goddess. Predates Isis and also said to be connected with Ra. So very, very interesting goddess. You can go to the next slide for me. So Hathor's tree. This tree is very, very significant to Hathor. The sycamore fig was venerated as sacred, a life-giving plant in unforested Egypt. It could grow some distance from the Nile at the edge of the desert of death, but only did so in the presence of life-giving water. Since this water came from an unseen subterranean source, the presence of a sycamore fig appeared to be miraculous. So you can imagine how the Egyptians would view this tree pretty much growing out of nowhere was considered a miracle. The tree's life versus death symbolism was enhanced by the fact that it lost its leaves during the winter and then appeared as a barren, lifeless object from a distance. And then, of course, then came the spring and the leaves would come back. So the tree, like Hathor herself, could be seen as a powerful symbol of the divine being, which encompasses both life and death. So this is another association that Hathor has also as a goddess associated to the underworld or to death, um, among her many roles. You can go to the next slide for me. Connections to modern religion and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing the screen. Uh, Connections to modern religion and beliefs. I'm sorry, and beliefs. Okay, so fig consumption was equated with eating the flesh and drinking the blood of Hathor herself. An analogy within the Christian communion sacrament might be appropriate. So there's a connection there that you could see with the idea of eating the bread and the blood, okay, as in communion in Christianity, and how it was seen in ancient Egypt when you would eat the fig. Okay, so interesting that there's that association. Tomb paintings often show Hathor leaning down from the tree to pour out wine and offer bread to souls in the afterlife. Since the early days of rabbinical commentary, readers of Genesis have tried to identify the common fig or sycamore tree with the biblical tree of knowledge of good and evil. Many authors stress the sexual aspect of having a knowledge of good and evil. Let's also point out the connection between fig leaves and the genitals, an association also found in Mithraic religion. So Mithraic religion there was a god in during the time that Genesis was written, around that period of time, there was a god named Mithras who had a cult of his own. And that god Mithras, which was during that time and also in the Middle East, in the Middle Eastern Mesopotamian area, was equated to the God of the Old Testament, to Yahweh. So it's interesting because a lot of the holidays, Christian holidays that we have, such as Christmas and Easter, and the time periods that Christmas and Easter are celebrated, among other specific holidays, have traces to, of course, paganism. But among the pagan religions or pagan countries that we get these holidays from, one of them was Mithras. So the cult of Mithras had a very similar concept of death and then resurrection within 3 days, and birth from a virgin mother. So very interesting that there's a comparison between Mithras and Christianity, but then there's also a comparison between Hathor and Christianity, as you can see with the association of the fig. So interesting contrast for you to see. And then, of course, the fig leaves covering the genitals. It's likely that devotees in some tree cults covered or clothed themselves in tree leaves during special festivals. You see, such practices may have occurred in Hathor's tree goddess worship. As for the modern development, as for the modern development of this idea, the shape and size of sycamore fig leaves would not make them very useful as the fig leaf genital coverings attached to classic statuary. But it's interesting because in the Bible, in the Old Testament, when Adam and Eve had clothed themselves, it was supposed to be fig leaves that they had used in order to keep themselves from looking naked in front of Yahweh, in front of God, right? The God of the Old Testament. So as you can see how all of these myths are amazingly connected, right? And you can see how it flows from goddess to goddess. We see the connection. You can go to the next slide for me. So, connection to the afterlife. As we have learned, Hathor has a connection to the sycamore tree, which was thought of as existing in the afterlife to provide nourishment to departed souls. Goddesses such as Nut, Isis, and Soasis probably made their connection with the fig in a mortuary context. None of Hathor's early aspects seem to be associated with mortuary practices for the common folk, but as goddess of the Giza sycamore, she would have performed afterlife functions for the pyramid building kings. In time, Hathor took on the identification of the tree goddess who nourished the souls of all the dead who entered the world beyond this one. Such nourishment was not merely earthly food and water, but rather magical elixirs and airs of renewal necessary for celestial life. Very interesting. So, as you know, the goddess of the afterlife or goddess of the dead has always been credited to be in later mythology is Nephthys. Nephthys is the sister of Isis, and she is considered to be in Egyptian mythology the goddess of the underworld and the goddess of the dead. But because Hathor tends to predate Isis as a goddess in her stories and her mythology, she is the first goddess that is associated to the dead or to the afterlife, and then of course was Isis and Nephthys, but she still retains her connection to the dead. Okay, so Dendera is her center of worship in Egypt. In her cult center at Dendera in Upper Egypt, she was worshipped along with Horus. She had priests as well as priestesses in her temples. Hathor was worshipped by people of all social classes for the gifts that she gave. Through her cult center though her cult center was at Dendera, and she was closely associated also with Thebes, worship of the goddess was widespread throughout Egypt. Worship was especially popular among the poor. So this is a goddess of the people, not just of kings or pharaohs. You can go to the next slide for me. And this is a beautiful restored ceiling of Hathor's temple in Dendera. So you have an idea of what her temple looks like inside. Amazing, amazing pictures. Cults in many towns in Egypt and also abroad, for she was the patroness of foreign parts. Okay, so this is a goddess that transcended Egypt. Patroness of many minerals, one from the desert. In the Sinai, turquoise mines, for example, were sacred to her. She was called Lady of Turquoise. At Deir al-Bahri, in the necropolis of Thebes, she became known as Lady of the West, patroness of the region of the dead. And in the late period, we're talking first millennium BCE, women aspired to be assimilated with Hathor in the next world, as men aspired to become assimilated to Osiris. And the Greeks identified Hathor with Aphrodite. So she is known as the Aphrodite and the Venus of Egypt or of the Middle East. You can go to the next slide for me. Okay, so she's a sky and earth goddess. She is a sky goddess by association with Horus. She's also an earth goddess, as attested by one of her epithets, Lady of the Sycamore. Okay, so because she is so associated to the sycamore, that also makes her a goddess of the earth. Here's a picture or a depiction of Hathor and Horus at the Temple of Dendera. Go to the next slide for me. She's also considered to be a solar goddess. Hathor is a solar goddess through her association with Ra. Also presided over affairs of the heart, sexuality, natural beauty, dance and music, diplomacy with foreign nations, fertility of the land, of the people and the animals, and also a goddess associated with motherhood. She was also associated with the afterlife, consoling and guiding the souls of the dead, and was further linked with the Milky Way, which was seen as the heavenly Nile River, sustainer of all life. She was so popular that even in the period of the New Kingdom of Egypt, which we're talking 1570 to 1069 BCE, when her attributes had been largely assumed by the goddess Isis, she was still venerated. So she predates Isis. And even after Isis came into the picture, as far as stories and mythologies were concerned, people still worshipped Hathor. They worshipped Isis and Hathor. Go to the next slide for me, please. She's a goddess of women, strongly associated with motherhood. She was the protector of women, though men also worshipped her. She's also goddess of beauty. In her role as goddess of beauty, she was the patron of cosmetics. Wearing cosmetics was seen as a form of worship to Hathor. Offerings of mirrors or cosmetic palettes to her was very common. More temples were dedicated to Hathor than any other goddess, and she was considered the most beautiful goddess of the entire Egyptian pantheon. She's also a goddess of love. Her commitment to her people crosses the boundaries of death itself, allowing her to step between worlds and shepherd the dead to the afterlife. But even in death, her devoted feel her loving grace and her love. This is a very interesting depiction of her. She's also a goddess of fertility and pleasure. Hence her association with Aphrodite and Venus. The festival of divine union of the goddess Hathor and Horus. Every year, her statue would be carried in a boat from Dendera to Edifu, a distance of 106 miles, to be reunited with Horus. On the way, the flotilla would divert along local canals into towns where a small chapel stood. Overnight, the sacred statue would be taken from the boat to rest in the building. Blessings were bestowed on the local community, and there was welcoming by the people and a celebration. The Festival of Divine Union. Once the flotillas of Hathor arrived at Edfu, the temple of Horus, a festival celebrating their union would begin. And this is a picture of Edfu's, the temple of Edfu, which is Horus's temple in Egypt. And here's a ceremonial bark of Horus at Edfu's temple. Amazing. Amazing pictures. Love those pictures. Goddess of music, drunkenness, and passion. Egyptian Hathor cults initiates probably used the sycamore fig as a hallucinogen or aphrodisiac. Cultists no doubt ate the fruit in a worship setting, and the Hathor priest and priestesses would have frequently eaten goddess-blessed figs from temple offerings, along with milk from sacred cows and other holy victuals. It is possible that they experienced such meals as a kind of communion with the goddess and as a way of attaining some measure of her powers or attributes. As the goddess of fertility, drunkenness, and enchanting music, Hathor was something like the modern equivalent of a mistress of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So this is her modern interpretation right here. Goddess of music, drunkenness, and passion. Once again, fig leaves were used for medicinal purposes among ancient Eastern people, and Hathor was very early thought of as a goddess of healing powers. So she was also a goddess associated to healing. Hathor was worshipped as mistress of drunkenness. The fruit of the sycamore tree may have possessed intoxicating or consciousness altering effects, but similar magic was seen in the related mulberry's blood red fruit juice and its power to enrage animals. As mistress of inebriety, Hathor had dominion over all altered states of consciousness, not just alcoholic stupor. So it would be reasonable to connect her with an intoxicating or narcotic fruit. How the sycamore fig may have been prepared to produce such psychotropic effects is unknown today. Because today, if you eat a fig, you probably will not have fits of passion or drunkenness or altered states of consciousness. But we unfortunately we do not know how the ancient Egyptians did this. We do know that they did, which is the interesting. Leave it to your imagination how this occurred. You can go to the next slide for me. Central to all of Hathor's aspect was joy, which brightened the heart of the believer and enabled one to live a full and meaningful life. Hathor was a multifaceted goddess, appealed to for a wide variety of needs, who provided many of the best aspects of life to humanity. So she was a goddess you can turn to for many things, including divination. A practice that was very associated to Hathor was scrying. So the ancient Egyptians used to take bowls and put water and then ink inside the water and would use it to scry and dedicate it to Hathor. So besides all of the amazing attributes of Hathor, she was also associated to magic and divination, specifically scrying. The dark side of Hathor. It was believed that Ra sent her to punish the human race for its wickedness. But Hathor wreaked such bloody havoc on earth that Ra was horrified. When this happened, Hathor had turned into Sekhmet. So this is when Hathor turns into Sekhmet and extracts the revenge and the punishment or vengeance of Ra. He tricked her afterwards by preparing vast quantities of beer mixed with mandrake and the blood of the slain. When Hathor drank the beer, she became so intoxicated that she could not continue her slaughter. So therefore, she had turned into Sekhmet and then turned back into Hathor once again. So Hathor and Sekhmet are said to be, some people say two different goddesses. Some people say it is the same goddess with different aspects of her. One as Sekhmet, one as Hathor. You can go to the next slide for me. In conclusion, Hathor was the goddess of beauty, patron of the cosmetic arts, the great one of many names, love, romance, sexuality, pleasure, perfume, dance, joy, musical arts, alcohol. She was also known as the mistress of life, protective of women invoked for protection, maternal care. She was a symbolic mother of the pharaohs. She was seen as the embodiment of joy, and she welcomed the dead to the afterlife in charge of food and drink for the dead. So she was let's call her the hostess with the mostest, the goddess that catered to the dead. Very interesting position. Besides the fact that she was also a goddess of divination, she was closely associated to music, and especially to a musical instrument called the sistrum, which used to be used during that time in order to invoke Hathor. You can go to the next slide for me. Here are other goddesses that are also associated to Hathor, which is Inanna, Ishtar, and then of course the Roman Venus and the Greek Aphrodite. These are all goddesses of love and said to have connections to Hathor. Love and beauty. Go to the next slide for me. Here are some of Hathor's sacred symbols. Okay, so there's a picture of the sistrum that I just talked about. This was used to invoke Hathor. It's an ancient musical instrument that sounds very similar to a rattle, from what I've heard. And it was used to connect to her, and it was used to produce music. And there's, of course, the sycamore, a picture of a mirror, because mirrors are very sacred to her. And there is the sacred bird. Her birthday is August 29th. So that's the day that is venerated as Hathor's birthday. Sacred fragrances. So these are some of the most amazing fragrances connected to Hathor. Most importantly, myrrh. Myrrh incense was considered to be very precious and to embody all of the finer qualities of the female sex. So if you want to invoke Hathor, myrrh incense or myrrh essential oil is the way to go. Her symbols, mirrors. Her mirror is considered a mirror to see the future. See, this is her connection to divination. So you could either use a mirror, what you use in order to do some scrying, or you could also use a method of a bowl of water with the ancient Egyptians used to put ink in it, and then they would allow the ink to flow through the water until it turned into shapes, and they would use that for scrying. But you can also just use a mirror, especially if you use a black mirror or a dark mirror is the easiest for scrying, and dedicate it to Hathor. Her sacred instrument, the sistrum. The sacred tree is the sycamore. Sacred animals, cows, lions, sparrows, snakes, hippopotamus, swans, and vultures. Those are some of the sacred animals of Hathor. Her sacred stones, turquoise, malachite, gold, and copper. She's very connected to gold and loves the color gold. So anything gold or bronze or gold colored is very sacred to her. Sacred colors, once again, bronze, red, pink, and white. Element is water, so she is connected to the element of water. Most love goddesses have a connection to water and sometimes fire, but definitely water. Foods that are sacred to her are dairy products, so milk and butter, as you can see her association with the cow. And constellation Pleiades. The constellation of the Pleiades are sacred to Hathor, as well as the stars, the Pleiadian stars, the cluster of stars of the Pleiades, very associated to Hathor. There are legends that say that Hathor came from the Pleiades. So interesting, there is so many different mythology and stories written about the origins of the Egyptian gods and goddesses, and Hathor has a lot of interesting stories as well, but she is definitely connected to the Pleiades. Go to the next slide for me. So here is a prayer to Hathor, okay, from Stella Upui, written in 1500 BCE. Giving praise to Hathor, who lives in Thebes, kiss the earth for reverence to her in all her forms. I was on the day that I saw her beauty. My mind was spending the day in celebration thereof, that I beheld the lady of the two lands in a dream, and she placed joy in my heart. Then I was revitalized with her food. He who is wise will honor her at the seasonal festival. That which gives teaching to the people might be regarded to be pure food, near the servant in the place of truth. Ipui, the justified says, in order to solve the problem of rivalry, jealousy, and coveting her, the wonders of Hathor, which she did in ancient times, should be related to the ones who do not know and the ones who do know. A generation should tell a next generation how beautiful she truly is. The goddess Hathor, the goddess Hathor. Thank you. So I included here a bathing ritual to Hathor, okay, for attracting love. So if you would like to attract love, this is a ritual you might want to consider doing. You can go to the next slide for me. What are some materials you will use? You're going to need a water-filled bathtub, a cup of whole milk, any of the following stones: turquoise, malachite, gold, or copper. Incense of myrrh. Remember, myrrh is very sacred to Hathor. 3 candles would be recommended, either red, pink, and white, or either you could do either all red, all pink, or all white, or red, pink, and white. And a handheld mirror. So how do you do this ritual? First, you want to fill the bath with warm water. adorn the outside of the tub with the stones. So you want to put the stones around the bathtub if you can. Light the myrrh incense so that you can smell it as you're in the bathtub, as you're getting ready to go into the bathtub. You're going to place the candles where you can light them from inside the tub. Okay. So the idea is that you're, connecting to the goddess as you are doing all of this. So all of this is part of the ritual. While you're lighting the candles, visualize the relationship that you desire. Okay. So visualize the kind of relationship you want, visualize the kind of person you want to be with. Okay, and how that person will make you feel and how you will feel in the relationship. So remember, very important is to focus on feelings, right? Because when we want to manifest, the most important thing is the feelings that you feel. That is what brings in the magic. Sit in the warm water and look inside the mirror. Okay, so you want your handheld mirror with you. As you're lying in the water, you're going to tell the mirror what passionate traits you desire from your partner to be. Go ahead and light the red candle. Tell the mirror the kind of love you want to experience, and then light the pink candle. Then tell the mirror how desirable and beautiful you wish to be for that partner. And now you light the white candle. Pour the cup of milk into the water and say, Goddess Hathor, I beseech you now, bring to me the romantic partner that makes me feel truly desired. After that, you enjoy the rest of the bath as you visualize the love that is coming your way. Once you are done with the bath, place an offering of milk on an altar for Hathor with one of the candles that was lit in the bathtub. When you're done with that and you're done putting the offering on her altar, go ahead in 24 hours, you can go ahead and give the milk back to the earth, the one on the altar. When the second candle ends, then replace it with another that was in the bath until all three are finished. So you're going to want to make sure that all three candles are burned. So you can alternate. You use one, then use the other, and then use the other. When all three candles are completely finished, if you can go to the next slide for me. Okay, so wanted to be sure. Yeah, your ritual is over once all three candles have been fully lit, fully burned, and your milk has been given back to the earth. So that is the end of my specific presentation on Hathor. And next Goddess Connection Circle will be to meet Goddess Kuan Yin. Can you stop sharing for me, Marlu? Thank you. All right, ladies. So is there any questions, any comments, anything that anybody would like to talk about the goddess Hathor? Any experiences that you've had with Hathor?
I just wanted to say that for the ritual, I would get small candles so that it could be done faster. And it doesn't matter if it's red, pink, or white. It just says in the ritual, one red, one pink, and white, but it could be all three white, right?
Yes. It could be all three white, it could be all three pink, it could be all three red, or you could have all three colors. So it's up to you how you want to do it. Those are her colors, so it's okay to, it'd be beautiful if you can use all three. That would be amazing. But if you can't, it's okay. And you can do all three of one color. It's perfectly fine. Remember that when it comes to goddesses, the intention is always what counts. Okay, that's the important thing, is always going to be the intention. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, if you want to use small candles, great candles to use are either the tea lights or the chime candles. Those really thin candles that are used for rituals, those are fantastic. The chimes and the tea lights are simple, inexpensive, easy to use, and they burn quickly. So you don't have to have them exactly. Those small chime candles or tea lights are fantastic candles to use. Exactly. Thank you, Marlu. And Marlu's showing the exact two candles I'm talking about. So that way you don't have to be burning these candles for hours and hours and hours, and you can finish your ritual in a short period of time versus having to drag it for several days. Any other questions regarding the ritual or Hathor in general? She's a beautiful goddess, very beautiful goddess, very loving energy, great goddess to connect to, very protective, and she's the goddess of everything awesome. I mean, she's goddess of love, beauty, music, dancing, parties, protective goddess, goddess of cosmetics, and I mean, what
Sex,
doesn't
drugs,
she
and rock
love?
and roll.
Exactly, exactly. Like, she is your woman. She is your lady. She is a perfect, perfect representation of the divine feminine. So like if you ever doubted what is the divine feminine in a goddess, Hathor is a great example. Great example of a beautiful goddess to connect to. And on top of that, she's also a goddess of divination and magic. So add to that. You can't go wrong with her. You cannot go wrong with her. Ali, do you have any questions regarding Hathor? No? Have you ever had any connections to Hathor? Have you ever connected with her?
No, I haven't connected with her, but she is a love goddess. So, so
In
I
in your
guess
radar. In your
she's in my
radar.
radar. Yeah, she's in my radar.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. So
but
Ali
oh,
here is becoming a priestess of love and connected to all love goddesses. So far, we've
yes,
got what, Freya, Mary Magdalene, and Venus,
Venus.
right? Or
Yes,
Aphrodite, Venus,
yeah,
Aphrodite.
yeah. So
So you never
they keep coming
know.
up. Power of three,
So
power of
power
three,
of
and three is
three,
my
but
number. Just so you know,
oh,
three is
there
my
you go.
number. So
Well, watch out, because Hathor might say, well, I don't know. I might want to be number 4. So
yeah, definitely all the love goddesses I want to, work with. I just those three, Freya, Venus, and Mary Magdalene, were the ones that called to me the most. And let's see, I'm gonna say something. I would do this ritual to Hathor. However, Venus, I already did a ritual to Venus about a year ago, so I'm already working with her. So I think she would be a little upset if I did it.
I, I agree. I agree. You're already working with Venus, so
So
yeah,
could she
Yeah.
do that ritual for Venus instead of Hathor?
she could. She could. The
Oh,
only
okay.
thing, what I would do though, is if you're going to do the ritual for Venus, um, I would alter it a slight bit. So for example, Venus loves roses. So for example, instead
And
of an
honey.
incense and honey, so instead of an incense of myrrh, if you're going to do Venus, I would do an incense of rose. A
Yeah.
rose incense would be amazing for Venus specifically. And as far as the colors, was is fine. Pink, red, and white are perfect. Those are her colors too. But I instead of milk, I would do honey. Not that you can't put milk. You can put milk for Venus. But honey is more um a lot more sacred to her is honey. So I would do honey. I would pour a little bit of honey in the water instead of milk in this particular case, and definitely burn some rose incense, um, maybe even some rose essential oil in the water. Um,
When I did the ritual to Venus, um, my mentor, my friend, she told me to eat the honey.
okay,
So I
okay.
ate the honey, and it was very interesting. I have to show you a picture of it. I just thought it was kind of funny because as I'm eating the honey on my plate, it turned into the shape of a man's, phallus, which I thought was hilarious.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
wow. Yes.
As I'm eating it. So it's like it was interesting. It was funny. I have to show you a
That's
picture of it.
that's a hell of an answer from Venus. That
Oh
is,
yeah,
yeah,
she's
yeah.
she's very
That's
sensual goddess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Connie just
Well,
came in.
yeah, I'm so sorry, Connie. We're like about to finish.
Okay.
But we'll have the replay up.
Okay.
We'll have the replay up
Hi,
so you could
Connie.
see it. We focused today on Hathor. Today our connection circle was to Hathor, goddess of love and beauty of the Egyptian pantheon. So keep it up, Ali. Keep it up. And
Yes.
keep it up. That sounds amazing. But yeah, I would alter it a slight bit if you're gonna do Venus. So instead of milk, honey, color is the same. Crystals. If you're gonna do crystals, I would do rose quartz is very sacred to Venus. Rose quartz, clear quartz also, and
Jade and Pearl.
jade, pearl. She also loves like pearl and mother of pearl. So mother of pearl, pearl, jade, also aquamarine, like aquamarine, blue topaz, like colors that indicate the ocean, water, right? Anything from the water. Shells in general, very, very sacred to Venus. And rose quartz. You can't go wrong with rose quartz. That's a stone of love, right? And so Venus is a goddess that is a little bit more associated to the moon. She has her solar aspect a little bit because of the connection with like passion and love, but she also has a lot of moon association, very lunar, very, very close to the moon. Ocean and moon. So I would for Venus, I would put things that are like ocean related, like themes, water, ocean, lunar. So like moonstones also is a good stone to put to Venus. The candles once again could be pink, red, and white, but you could also do blue because of the ocean, because the connection to the ocean. So you could do a blue candle or turquoise colored candle, so that's an option too. That's very closely associated to her water or aspect of ocean. So ladies, that's what I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed the Hathor connection circle, that you got something out of it. You got a ritual and some information on this amazing, beautiful goddess. I hope we all get to travel to Egypt and go to Dendera and see her temple there. That would be incredible. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the new moon circle that's coming up with Claudia.
They said you're in for a treat because you'll be able to see the Dendera temple.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be amazing. Yes. I can't wait for that. So yeah, and we're gonna get a lot more information, and that's amazing because we're gonna get a lot more information on Sekhmet and the association with Sekhmet and Hathor, and yep, it's gonna be amazing. So ladies, thank you for being here, and the replay will be up. Whoever didn't get to be on, you'll get to see it afterwards, and enjoy the new moon circle.
Leave them out. See you soon. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.